We're turning into a taboo topic into something that's shame-free, science-baked, science-backed, culturally aligned, and human first. You often find a man who's struggling with this addiction saying, "I'm fine," and yet he's drowning, not in alcohol, not in drugs, but in silent addictions we don't often talk about. The addiction that takes place when the Wi-Fi is on and the shame is creeping in. There's a wife somewhere in Waterfalls who's feeling as if she's single at the moment, and yet she's married. Her husband loves her, yes, but he doesn't know how to stop watching what's keeping him from her. We've been naming this addiction that creeps through Wi-Fi and hides behind locked screens. We've been having conversations that we never go to. Porn addiction, of compulsive sexual behavior, the silent war our brothers are fighting behind locked screens and locked hearts. We've been following the story of TK from the UK. He is a mental health specialist, and he's somebody who himself has gone through porn addiction. And last week, we learned that it wasn't just porn addiction he was battling with. In fact, it was a myriad of addiction, including substances like cocaine. We also have Rushwaya, psychologist, TK2 rather. He's a founder of Ravenico Foundation, and he is a mental health advocate. There's also a 20-year-old in Warren Park who calls it his midnight monster. He's tried deleting apps, switching off his phone, throwing away his laptop, even sleeping at his cousin's place. But to Maxim's Jingochai, his mind is negotiating with him. He too is battling with watching blue movies. And on that note, we want to continue this discussion. So we saw porn addiction. We've been following the discussion and understanding what exactly porn addiction does do to the brain. And through the story of TK3, we've been having a window seat into what the actual struggle looks like as far as porn addiction is concerned. 0719-100-404. Have you yourself had any experience with blue movies? Do you know somebody, particularly someone you've been in a relationship with, and yet the struggle has been real and it has certainly affected your relationship? 0719-100-404. Now, Rushwaya, it's so good to have you, TK3, in studio. Brian is also here, social worker. Peace is also here. Just remind us, TK2, before we get into our discussion, like this, porn addiction. Remind us what exactly porn addiction is from a clinical point of view, maybe from your experience, from a psychological point of view. What is it? And maybe from a cultural point of view, if you can touch on that. Good morning, Takuzo Rushwaya. How are you?
Morning, Tolake. Morning, all viewers. Thank you once again for awarding me this moment to speak on this issue, because literally it's one of those things that we rarely talk about. It's one of those things that if you want to discuss, even as men, we really try to shy away as best as we can. Why? Because there's that element of shame and guilt that comes after you've said it out, in the sense that most people think it's something that you cannot talk about, but literally it's literally a cry for help that one is going through. So literally when we present these issues with porn addiction, or the desire to continue watching blue movies, mostly let's agree on this thing that it is something that develops as a result of many things. There are many things that literally cause it, and trauma is the least part of it. So when you're focusing upon it, let's agree that there are a number of factors that contribute to it being very volatile around men. For instance, we talk about the construct and its availability of the movies online. The availability and the exposure in itself actually changes the narrative of everything else. At the same time, the coping mechanisms from various emotions that men would going to be able to express themselves to also can be a contributor. So while it's looking at all these things, there's the underlying thing that comes into play, that it's a behavior that is learned, and once it has been learned, it's something that is not easily let go. It's something that really calls you in and out. You figure out that it's been in the middle of the night while it's you're asleep, you can actually wake up and saying, I think I need to I'm lacking something, I just need to watch one before I sleep, or I just need to get into. And once you're engaged, you start from the mild ones and get deeper until you cannot resist the urge. And once that has become a thing, it literally develops to a state where you are fantasizing during the day. While you're walking in the street, while you're working at work, you can no longer concentrate. You begin to see things, and in that you yourself are only meditating upon. When you look at a person, you're meditating now, looking at them, feeding a certain fantasy that you actually have in your head. So all these distracts how you interact with people around you, and distracts how you can concentrate at work, and it does really affect your functionality. And whenever this thing affects your functionality, then when we say addiction has come into play.
So it's so interesting that although we identify pornography or blue movies as an object of addiction, you also said, in your opinion, trauma has very little to do with that. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, it's a contributor. It's like a factor that contributes, but not necessarily say it's linked directly to porn addiction. No, it's a number of factors that pushes into porn addiction.
But trauma can result in development of porn addiction?
Yeah, it does contribute, and also exacerbate the desire for one to have that longing.
All right, got you. It's Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. We are still tracing what porn addiction does do to a person, into a community, and as always, 0719-100-404. Do you have any experience with porn addiction? And what has been your experience? 0719-100-404. Now, whilst you're on that point, Takudzo, in a Zimbabwean context, now I've been looking for statistics for our context. I have not been able to really land on any as far as addiction, porn addiction, specifically affecting our Zimbabwean men, for a start, because we started this conversation in Men's Month for their mental health. From where you are sitting, how serious is porn addiction for our Zimbabwean men?
Thank you for that. You realize that in Zimbabwe, based upon the issues that we come around with, the social cultural constructs, you really find people who come through to say, I'm battling this thing, right? Why? Because of the guilt and the shame associated with it. But being honest enough, from the ones I have met, people I have talked to, young men I have met during our community outreaches, you figure out that a lot of people, a lot of young men, and even married men, are going through this thing. Even the clergy, those we think that they have in courts the Holy Cross on top of them, they are also going through this, and it's actually distracting homes. And because it cannot be said openly, it's something that we try by all means to hide. We might fail to have enough information on its severity, the state that we are navigating it. But I think, let me just say this, it is a post-COVID thing that came into picture. Because during COVID-19, many people stayed indoors, and what were they doing? What was it? Where were they getting the entertainment? So they were actually exposed to this thing during that period, and the boom actually increased just soon after COVID, and it's rampant.
Wow, this is very interesting. It's Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. We're talking about an industry that's generating, you're not going to believe this, we're talking about an industry that's generating to over $100 billion yearly across the world. So if you're somebody who loves watching TV and sports, it is making more than what they call NFL and football, American football, which is also a billion-dollar industry. It's making more than NBA in itself makes. It's making more than channels like NBC and CBS in America, which are one of the biggest TV combined. All these revenues combined, this one industry is making more money than any of those industries. That's actually kind of scary and shocking when you process it. And guess which is becoming its fastest growing market? Africa is. And we're trying to understand this morning why Africa has become a thirsty and ripe, fertile land for this industry, which is pornography, and how it's affecting our men. 0719-100-404. Question, as you're reflecting to your time during COVID, Takuzo has suggested that COVID was one time where we saw the numbers going up in terms of consumption of this content, of blue movies. And again, this is no judgment. When you look back to COVID, does this ring true for you that perhaps you did find yourself watching a little bit more around this content? And we're also seeing a lot of our teenagers at Takudzwa taking in blue movies. In fact, statistics show that most men who end up watching blue movies and with addiction to blue movies actually started or have their first encounter when they were teenagers. And I think TK2 last week in this story also kind of alluded to that, plus his moving to a country where it's more accessible.
So thank you. You figure out that now almost everyone owns a smartphone, and data is literally data is available 24/7 and very much affordable at the same time. So that exposure wasn't there prior. Now it's now available. They have the access to the internet. They have access to unrestricted sites. So it did mean that we have that regulation that we could say, okay, if at a certain age you could actually limit and also monitor, then actually we could have limited access to it. But right now, you figure out that there is less that of a parental control in terms of how this child is using the gadget. We still have now passwords all over the phones. So all these actually contributes to them having free access to whatever they want whenever they need it. And usually most of the parents of nowadays are busy. I have work, she has work, and we meet at home at 9 p.m. No one thinks what happens with the boy or the girl child during the whole day. So they are exposed. They have this free lands, free time that they have access to a number of things that are so very harmful to them. But yet, the parent is not there to get into deeper issues.
We also have Brian, who's a social worker coming from Batira Pamwe. Brian, good morning. It's all good to have you as we're talking about blue movies. For you as a social worker, in a facility that is supposed to help people with addictions, how much of porn addiction is trauma related?
Okay, good morning, Folake. Good morning, listeners. Yeah, most of the cases, the thing with addiction, it's very easy to jump from one addiction to another, right? People get involved in risky sexual behaviors. That means going out to look for those things, or even online, especially these days. Like you said, COVID-19 was the peak of most addictions, looking at be it substance use or the blue movies, right? The exposure we hear, like I think, like you were saying, kids are now being exposed. So idleness is mostly one of the most contributor to addictions. Just being idle. So I think that period of COVID, most people had nothing to do. So most of the time they were on their phones scrolling through, and we get these ads that come in and you're hooked from there. And then so most of these addictions, be substance use, most probably they're linked, some of them are linked to porn addiction.
So in a journal that looks into sexual medicine, they found that 7 out of 10 men in comparison, well, maybe not in comparison, but 7 out of 10 men and 3 out of 10 women report using pornography frequently. Yeah, 7 out of 10 men. So in this room, I
Yeah. I was also looking at statistics recently for the US. Mostly the OnlyFans app, that one where people subscribe. I was looking, like you're saying, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. The number of subscriptions that were there and the money generated from that was also alarming. It was like around billions. And like you said, Africa is also growing in terms of that. Like the accessibility now, we now have internet access. People are just on their phone, everyone, like you said, now on their mobile phone, so it's very easy to get access to those things.
In your work in your rehabilitation center, have you met people who are battling with porn addiction?
Personally, I haven't, and some of these addictions, like it's hidden addictions, so most people don't usually open up.
Has Mbatara Pamwe dealt with people battling with porn addiction?
I'm not really sure, but then there might be chances that they have dealt.
And for you, TK3, have you actually dealt with men battling with porn addiction?
So yeah, I've met a few, but what we literally established a group therapy just for them. Let's say there's a group discussion when we have time to just support each other. You figure out that the number is not even growing; it's constant. It's still the same number. And the one decides to show up this time and say, "If I'm not able to come through, can we just do it online?" We just talk. Why? Because they still have that fear or that feeling that I might be seen or I might be like labeled. But yeah, I've met a number of guys.
Yeah. So let's go back to TK2, who was sharing his story and his experience with porn addiction when he was brought in. Last week he was telling us, when he was here, especially when we were younger, either it was somebody would bring in the blue material or it wasn't easily accessible as it is now. Until he migrated and went to the UK where waitoona shelf yaitotengesa mamagazini wawawa from grade 0 to grade 5 being like the most explicit stuff, and it was so easily accessible for him that he couldn't believe it and tried it out, and before you know it, he himself found himself battling with porn addiction. TK2, it's so good to have you back. TK3, it's so good to have you back in studio.
Thank you for having me back.
So we understand that porn addiction in itself will manifest in many different ways, right? For some people, you will see the changes in their behavior. For some people, it's emotional. For some people, it's just in their general function. For you, what were the symptoms that indeed watching blue movies had become an addiction?
I think probably my first red flag personally was when I caught myself thinking about it. I mean, constantly.
Right.
You're working in the office, and you find yourself thinking about it, and then from there, it got to a point where I'll probably be sitting in a meeting, and I'll just go on my phone. That's when I actually realized, okay, I think now this is addiction, because it's now biting into my day-to-day life. From there, it escalated to me being very reclusive when I'm at home. I'm finding myself, I'm spending more time in my bedroom on my phone rather than spending time with my wife or children. That was my first red flag. And then it just escalated to me being quite irritable. You get into an environment, social or family environment, and you find yourself very irritable because you can't be asked. You don't really want to be in that environment. You want to be scrolling on your phone, or you're watching the blue news on the telly.
Yeah, got you. And did you find yourself, for some people, they start to express sexual innuendos, like it's things that you say, it's gestures, it's body language. Has that been you? Have you seen other people do that?
I have seen other people do that, but the thing is, in the UK, it's very sexualized community, and what I mean by that is sexual content and that kind of thing is quite desensitized, right down to day-to-day dressing. It is a day-to-day thing for them. So you can easily misconstrue it with just being everyday life, unless you're personally involved in when you realize, okay, I never used to speak like this. How is it when I'm in a work environment and I am communicating with the opposite sex? Why has my communication become more sexually motivated? You could be talking about work and then you throw in a little comment. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the problem with that is, the more you do that, you're now breaking certain barriers in the work environment. Next thing you know, you start creating, relationships outside of work that are.
Yeah. Did you have feelings of guilt after you've been watching this stuff?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
What were you guilty about? What were you feeling guilty about?
I'll probably say it's the shame that comes with it. You see what I'm saying? I'll probably always think, what would my wife think? Or does this mean I don't love my wife? Do you see what I'm saying? You start asking yourself a lot of questions. The problem with that is feeling guilty doesn't solve the problem. Never solves the problem. The only thing is feeling guilty will push you to carry on doing it.
Really?
To a certain extent.
Explain
You'll sit down and feel guilty. Yes. But rather than feeling, yes, guilt is the right emotion to have to help you. But a lot of times when you feel guilty, it's what you do after feeling guilty. What do you put in place to say, okay, do you get to a point where I feel guilty and I know I have a problem?
Sites? Are they subscriptions?
They are about it. They're websites. And then on those particular websites, you have the option either to subscribe or you can just go through the free route. And then a number of them are free. I could literally just start typing because they're right at the tip of my hand. And I mean,
hands him on to be able to perform. So definitely, it's gonna raise up a question now. What's really happening between him and the wife? And that thing easily becomes annoying. Anger issues trickles in. Why? Because you're annoyed, you're frustrated, you're not getting what you want. Someone is not fitting to what you have, the narrative you have. Frustration comes in, anger comes in, and anger misdirected, it's something else. So issues to do with violence setting.
How do you help them recover from this addiction?
So recovery, it's not a one-day thing. It's a serious journey that not only, let's say, the practitioner is going to take you through. No, it's a two-way process by you and your practitioner. You work together. So you have to commit to this thing for the journey of recovery. So usually we use CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, as a way in which we start to analyze the underlying things. We understand the patterns of thoughts and try by all means to help a person navigate this pattern of thought and how best we can help them regain a sense of control on what they can control, what happens within their lives, and also take the step ahead. So it's a process that goes on for a period of time.
Yeah.
I just need to throw in a question. Have you ever dealt with maybe partners of people that have addiction?
Not yet of a partner, but I've directly dealt with the individuals. Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to take a question at you, Brian. You do you recognize porn as an addiction?
Yes, it is.
You do.
It's very much an addiction because it's more of learned behavior. So most of these addictions start as maybe experimentation. People are exposed to these certain things and you experiment, let me try how this feels like, and then it now develops into a pattern. It's a habit that you have learned, like you were saying, they need to understand the cognitive or what's going on in their head, like what prompts the person to do this, what are some of the thoughts that come into their mind.
But so far it seems as if at a national level we seem to focus on non-behavioral addiction. So we're looking at substances, but behavioral addiction, we seem, even when we look at our multi-sectoral approach, we seem to be less angled towards non-substance addiction and behavioral addiction. Your gaming, your exercise, your food, your porn addiction. Why do you think that is, Brian, especially in your experience working with the rehab center? You said you've not seen anyone come in with porn addiction. Have you seen anyone come in with a gambling addiction?
Yes, I have. So the thing is, with this type of addiction, like I say, they're mostly hidden addiction.